Live from SABC headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, welcome to this evening's episode of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvoko, and on the show this evening,
I now wish to introduce a person who I believe is fit and proper to become the new National Commissioner of Police, and that is General Fani Masemola.
President Cyril Ramaphosa appoints a new National Police Commissioner. Who is he?
I'm not fired. I'm retiring.
And on his last day at work, we also bring you the outgoing commissioner's parting shots. With South Africans divided over the 5-year imprisonment sentence given to Walter Sisulu University student Sibongile Mani, found guilty of theft after 14 million rands was erroneously paid to her, our expert enlightens us on how sentencing works. And on a disappointing note, Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu was also scheduled to appear on the show this evening. She has unfortunately cancelled at the 11th hour. But the show, of course, has to go on. We'll start with that developing story that broke about a couple of hours ago or so. President Cyril Ramaphosa announcing that he had appointed career policeman General Fani Masemola as South Africa's new National Police Commissioner. Well, wondering who he is, what he has done, here's how the president answered those questions even before they were asked.
General Masemola has been a deputy police commissioner with an outstanding record of achievements in policing across South Africa. This includes helping with the de-escalation of violence in KwaZulu-Natal after our first democratic elections, where he was stationed. General Masemola also brings to this position his experience in drastically reducing cash-in-transit crimes in the period around 2016. General Masemola played a leading role in coordinating security for all elections that we have held since and including 1994. And he led the securing of major national and international events in our country, including United Nations summits, climate change conferences, and the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Most recently, General Masemola served the nation as chairperson of NetJoins on COVID-19, which coordinated government's efforts across different sectors, nationally as well as internationally, to keep all of us safe.
Well, my first guests represent two labor unions to which many women, men and women in blue belong to. These Mpokwinana, who is from the Independent Policing Union of South Africa, IPUSA. Lesiba Tobakale represents the South African Police Union, SAPU. Good evening to both of you. Thank you very much for your time. And I think this is also, what I'm about to ask is, attests to how wrong, some of these things work in our country, in that we rarely talk about, and by extension, we know very little, if anything, about, the men and women in charge, of various aspects of policing in South Africa. Because when you listened to the president, the accomplishments, of this man, I bet you, great majority of us, those of us who are supposed to know, because either we report on these things or we talk to or supposed to be talking to these people all the time, actually didn't know what the president had to say today about the new National Police Commissioner. Mpo, do you know him?
Yes, I have met him 30 years ago. A very good police officer. He was overlooked in the past, and we hoped that one day he was going to ascend to this position. The president today has made history. He had followed on the footsteps of the principles of National Development Plan and have established a panel of experts which have helped him to identify a man of his expertise and experience. He would not have been able to read, about his history if it was not the duty of those panel experts. Ipusa would love to thank that team and the president for this early work.
Why do you say he was overlooked?
Oh, well, he has been around for quite some time. He has been doing VISPOL for quite some time, was part of ORS. He was also demoted at some stage, and he was posted as a provincial commissioner for Limpopo. That position or situation was changed when the new national commissioner came into the office. He was returned to the Deputy National Commissioner of Police.
Lesiba, do you know him?
Yeah, as a SAPU, we worked with General Masemola. Remember, amongst the Deputy National Commissioners, he's the most senior Deputy National Commissioner, and working within the operational response services, where all the operations of SAPS, as the President mentioned, when he was telling us about him during the announcement, indeed, he has been responsible for them. Whenever we had issues that we would want to discuss with him, he's a humble man. He's a man, indeed, who would give the unions an ear, and he would always love to hear what is it that the unions are coming with. He would want to share ideas with us. He would not shut the door. He would not be somebody who really does not care about issues of the workers. He takes them closely to heart. So we really know this man as an organization, and we are congratulating him. And we also wish to thank the president for appointing him. Because imagine if maybe somebody junior was appointed, because we know here in SAPS, the issue of command and control, it is one of the main things that are being looked at. So we are really wish to say that we are in support of him, because his success, it is dependent on the support that he will get amongst his Deputy National Commissioners, amongst his divisional commissioners, amongst his provincial commissioners, and the rest of the members. And as SAPU, we are saying that we are going to be supporting the incoming National Commissioner, because we want him to succeed in fighting crime in South Africa. We want him as well to succeed in ensuring that the morale of the members, which is so low, be boosted in terms of ensuring that those members are promoted. But indeed, we know him. We worked very well with him. We know, that he never appeared in the media for wrong things as well. It is good for us to mention. It would really be a mistake for us not to mention that he never appeared in the media spaces for wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Paul, he may have been overlooked, before, as you allege, and he may be the good guy that Lesiba says he is. He listens. He is, he empathizes, with you guys when you go and speak to him. The question many South Africans are asking or wondering about is whether he can actually do the job. What makes you think or feel that he can do the job of dealing with crime in our country?
Yeah, look, he has been visible everywhere. He was at KwaZulu-Natal together with the Minister of Police. He is always available to listen to the issues of South Africans. It is unfortunate that it's coming in at a time when South Africans need policing more. And we, as the Independent Policing Union of South Africa, are confident that he is the real person for the job. He will be able to address all the 5 key performance areas of a National Commissioner of Police, because we have seen him, addressing issues of Program 1, issues of Program 2, which is VISPOL, Program 3, which is detection, and under detection, we have got forensic detective services and the HOPS. Vuyo, we are not saying that it is going to be easy for him. He is coming into an environment where there is a high level of crime. South Africans, and especially family violence and child protection, child issues are high in our country. Those crimes, we have got DNA, which is outstanding, at forensic. He is coming in to come and deal with those issues. He needs our support. They need the support of each and everyone, including the National Prosecuting Authorities, when he go about dealing with those issues.
Lesiba, what makes you think, in fact, what do you think he is going to need the most, given the situation we are in right now as a country, which Mpho has just touched on?
I think we have touched basically on the support that he needs. He needs to get the support, because without the support of his managers, those who will be working closely under himself, it would be difficult. Without the support of organized labor in this environment, without the support and the understanding and the good morale of members, it would be difficult for him to do this job. Without the support, the political support that he needs. But as we speak, in terms of the political support, he also has to ensure that he take a stand to ensure that there is no political interference that would come, because we know that he knows that as the National Commissioner, what are his powers? What is it that he has to do as his responsibilities? So where he recognizes the separation of power when it comes to the powers of the National Commissioner and the powers of the Minister, we strongly believe that he would be able to execute his duties in accordance. But moreover, when a new National Commissioner comes in, they need to be given space for them to be able to do what it is expected of them to do. We're not bringing a stranger here. The president didn't bring a stranger. He didn't bring somebody out of the police. So moreover, SAPU appreciates that for him being the DNC or being the Deputy National Commissioner for so long, clearly he knows all of these strategies. He knows where are the shortfalls, where there were strategies that maybe he could not implement because he was a deputy. Now he is the National Commissioner. He has to continue. He has to make sure that there is continuity on things that are still outstanding or things that were, implemented not fully so, at least because of the experience that we strongly believe he has, because we know he has been in the job for such a long time. He has been exposed within the environment of the South African Police Services. He knows the administrative part of it. He knows the operational part of it. He knows how to manage finances thereof. That is what we know. He's got all of those capabilities. So we strongly believe with all of that we are mentioning combined, but moreover, the support that he needs at this time, he will be able to execute his duties and succeed in fighting crime in this country. As we have seen, the crime stats are really not looking good within our South African space.
Mpho, the man who appointed him who announced his appointment this afternoon, is appearing before the Human Rights Commission tomorrow to talk about, the July unrest, which resulted, in widespread looting in KwaZulu-Natal, parts of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, leading to more than 300 people dying. Now, the spat between the outgoing a police commissioner and the national minister of police was partly to blame from where many people see it. Do you think that this time around the national commissioner will be given what Lesiba calls space to actually do what he is supposed to do?
I think the previous national commissioner had space. He just did not utilize it. There was never an interference between the national commissioner of police and the minister. He is responsible. The national commissioner of police is an operational man. He is the person accountable, who is the accounting officer of the police. But if the Minister of Police don't find joy from what National Commissioner is doing, he cannot just sit down and not do anything. I think it has been a struggle to really relieve him of his duties. The President has taken very long to do that, but at the end that has happened. The current National Commissioner of Police has got space as well. He must not, when he fails to do his job, and then point the finger at someone else. The Minister of Police is the executive authority responsible for policing in this country. He's a politician, he's a political head. If there are political issues, the President shall go straight to the Minister of Police. If there are operational issues, the President shall go straight to the National Commissioner of Police for answers.
In fact, Lesiba, incidentally, it was your union, that wrote to President Ramaphosa in June 2021. That was ahead of, the unrest we saw. We were to see a month later, where you said that the public spats between the police minister and the commissioner, now outgoing, were to the embarrassment of the nation, as you put it.
Yes, that is true. We wrote even twice to the president to intervene between what was happening between the the former national commissioner and the minister, because we had seen, because there were a lot of issues that were happening between both of them. And after realizing that this is not good for policing, this is not good for crime in this country, us as an organization, we wanted the president to intervene in between. And that indeed was also informed clearly by some appointments that were made by the former national commissioner, senior manager's appointments, whereby the minister would say that he was, reversing them. So those were some of the issues, and I think the rest of the issues are known. But looking into where we are and going forward, it is good that we mentioned earlier the issue of political interference, that it should not be there. Each one of them should be allowed a space to perform their duties. Moreover, support. It is what it is needed. All of us, we are looking at the national commissioner who has just been appointed today to say, how can we really help? How can we really give him support so that he can succeed in his duties in order to deal with the crisis that we are seeing in policing? The crime stats speaks for themselves, and also to somebody who will be able to take the baton and ensure that the morale of our members is very well posted. So that is what we are looking for. And as an organization, this is what we are ready to do, to work hand in hand with the incoming national commissioner.
Okay, gentlemen, that's where we're going to leave it for this evening. Let me thank both of you for coming through and helping us know more about this man who today has been appointed the National Police Commissioner of Police in South Africa. Mpokwinana from the Independent Policing Union of South Africa, IPUSA, and Lesiba Tobakale, who represents the South African Police Union, SAPU. Now, today, of course, was also outgoing National Police Commissioner Ketla Stole's last day in office after he and President Ramaphosa reached as they called it, mutual agreement. But what, though, were the contents of that mutual agreement? Or was it a euphemism for "you're fired"? Well, our political correspondent, Samkele Maseko, tried to find out from the man himself.
He indicated clearly that the contents of the mutual agreement is confidential, and I'll keep it confidential. But he did not necessarily see me rigidly as a national commissioner. He also saw me as a strategist and a creativist. So, strategic leaders and situational leaders usually do not need a position in order to lead. They lead inside and outside position. So, that's how he saw me. But then, secondly, my journey as a national commissioner has been a higher purpose journey and was characterized by anointment. And by the way, I was not necessarily appointed. I was anointed long before I was appointed. And immediately after anointment, I was given a spiritual assignment. I combined it with the strategic assignment in one vision. But when God decides the anointment that was intended for the spiritual assignment has been accomplished, no one can continue beyond it. Only the strategic mission will remain. And as I'm stepping out, I'm leaving the strategic mission with quite a lot of strategic network, which if you give me the opportunity, I'll tell you, because some are at international level. But the spiritual assignment has been fulfilled, and I've laid the strategic foundation.
Do you feel as if the president chose the minister over you?
I did not see a choice. As I explained, I think here I'm rising higher than what people see.
Commissioner, you're not the first to not finish their term of office. Even though on paper yours will be written completed, but you're leaving 7 months before.
Yes.
Jackie Selebi was fired.
Yes.
Peggy Cele, fired.
Yes.
Ria Pierre, fired.
Yes.
Your predecessor, Khomotso Pahlane, fired.
Yes.
Is this a growing trend that police commissioners don't finish their terms and get fired?
What is interesting is the trend of the word fire. Firstly, did not apply to me. I'm not fired. I'm retiring. Secondly, I think all of them, they were not afforded the opportunity to make a handing over.
Fired or retired, but General Story is gone. But his political principal, of course, Police Minister Peggy Cele, is staying on. The two have clashed before, often publicly. Cele was one of several ministers President Cyril Ramaphosa today said he had consulted before appointing the new commissioner. So just how easy or difficult was it working with Cele?
My relationship with the Minister of Police, I can start by saying is professionally average. and further indicate that it is governed by prescripts. And as we have been working, the interpretation of the prescripts has always come into play. And remember, the prescripts would clearly outline the separation of powers and also indicate whose mandate and whose role that relates to a particular situation.
Police Commissioner, I'll put it to you that there's a breakdown, and has been for a while, of relations between you and the minister. One, the minister said you were a wall during the July unrest, nowhere to be found. He was working with the deputies. You, somewhere relaxing, nowhere to be found. Two, your contract has been cut short now by 7 months. That shows that the minister has no confidence in your leadership as Commissioner of Police.
Okay. All right, firstly, let's start with the one of me, nowhere to be found. Very interesting. Just recently, I've been to Parliament. He also went public and say, I was not in Parliament, so nowhere to be found. Now, the question is, how does that reconcile with the past? And how much is that past believable that I was nowhere to be found? Yet, you could not see that I'm in Parliament, and you went public and say I'm not. And I was there in blue uniform. So, but then at the same time, I want to refer to the most recent, where I've been portrayed as a, what do we call it, a treason criminal, conniving with EFF and all that. I think I had to clarify that thing to say, hey, I think the meeting was initiated by the minister's office. But then it's me now who's committing treason. I think this particular aspect was also clarified. And we appeared before the media, both of us with the minister, in which this matter was actually reconciled. So, and the minister then said in that media conference that me and him, we never fought.
Reflections there from the outgoing National Police Commissioner Kehla Stole speaking to our Samgele Masego. Well, still polite, but a little bit more frank, perhaps. A little bit more less guarded, I would say, than he usually is. And at this point, let's bring in, for another perspective, Themba Masuku, who is a policing expert from the organization African Policing Civilian Oversight Forum. Good evening, and thank you very much for your time this evening. I don't know what you make of the outgoing police commissioner's statements, and I deem them to be important because he is the man who occupied the seat, for just over 4 years, number one. And on his last day at work, I thought he would be, which I think to an extent he was, a little more frank and less guarded, which gives the rest of us something to work on. And that's not to say we will take his word or words for it, but just from the little you listened to, there, from his reflections, what did you make of it?
Yes, good evening, Buyo, and good evening to your viewers. He said quite a mouthful, and I was actually surprised that he was able to come out in the manner that he did about his experience and his relationship with the minister. So would begin to understand now that the relationship was actually managed, because like he mentioned that the minister had indicated at many points that there was no fights. They have a professional relationship. So those things are quite insightful in terms of the nature of the relationship. But it becomes also very clear that the relationship itself was untenable. It was toxic in many ways, and it becomes very worrying that this relationship was actually prolonged in this manner, and perhaps it would explain the difficulties that operationally the police had encountered because of this relationship, which seems very, very, very toxic.
Professionally average. That's his description of their relationship, and then he goes on to say it was governed by prescripts. Now, do those prescripts, stop, wrong things from happening? Because a lot of people would argue that based on what we've seen, heard, there are public spats and so on. I was talking to the unions earlier, and one of them had actually written to the president prior to those July unrest, to the July unrest, actually raising the issue of their public spats and how it was really killing the people's confidence in the police and their ability to do what they are constitutionally mandated to do. So what I'm asking is whether, the fact that you do have these prescripts, does it stop, people from, engaging in wrong things, or not focusing on what each one of them is supposed to do?
Yeah, absolutely no. There's no requirement in law that the minister and the national commissioner should have a personal relationship, or they must be cordial. The relationship must be professional because it is governed. The responsibilities of the minister are clearly defined, and those of the national commissioner are clearly defined. So that separation of powers in an ideal situation allows for whoever is the national commissioner or minister to be able to work independently from each other, but obviously collaboratively, because the minister as a political head is responsible for policy development and strategy, and that needs to be implemented by the national commissioner. So there will always be a relationship, and again, that relationship is very important. That you need, although it is not a requirement, but you need a national commissioner and a minister who can read from the same handbook. That can have a professional, not an average kind of relationship, but a relationship that is able to deliver on the mandate of this SABC, given particularly the gravity of the challenges around crime, violence, and a lot of things that are confronting SABC. That relationship becomes very important to have a minister who is able to work well with the national commissioner.
And here's the point, of me starting where I started and our conversation for, the past few minutes. I wasn't asking it because, for the fun of it or going back to, what happened in the past. From the time the president made the announcement, I heard and saw a lot of people taking to social media to say, for as long as you have Begitele as a minister, no commissioner stands any chance of succeeding. And they are basing that on what you and I have been talking about over the past couple of minutes.
Other people are able to really look into the future and see a lot of possibilities. I want to be much more hopeful that the General Masemola would be able to define his role and himself independently from the minister. I'm confident that he will be able to assert his authority as head of the South African Police Service and be able to break that umbilical cord, or that umbilical cord is managed by prescript. The good thing about General Masemola as the National Commissioner is that he has been in senior management for a very long time. He has seen national commissioners come and go, and he knows he's aware of the reasons why national commissioners have failed or not succeeded in their role. So he comes into that position fully aware of what are the risks, what are the challenges, and what are the expectations, and is fully aware what will make him succeed in that position as a national commissioner, and that success is not dependent entirely on his relationship with the minister. It is entirely dependent on his ability to provide leadership, ability to stay away from problems, because a number of police officers, a number of national commissioners were dismissed because of conduct issues. So if he's able to simply look at the prescripts in terms of what he is required as a national commissioner, and sift away the noise, then he will be successful. His success also is dependent on the extent to which he's able to work with communities, because there's no police agency anywhere in the world that can succeed in the delivery of policing issues without the help of communities. Communities are at the center of any success of any policing strategy.
Okay, so now he has, as you say, the experience. The unions earlier were saying he has the right temperament, but who also has earned the respect of the stakeholders he has had to deal with in his previous role, which, as you have underscored, was a very senior. He was the most senior, in fact, of the deputies. And from what the president told us when he was announcing this appointment, he has the credentials as well. But there is the issue of resources. General Setola, in all fairness to him, this is an issue he kept on raising every now and again, and no one, including the president and the minister, has actually ever disputed that fact. And he feels, and this is an issue that came up again in his interview with our Samkele Maseko, that the issue of resources, because when he reflects on the July riots, he highlights very sharply the issue of resources. Do you think, or is there evidence from what we've seen and heard so far, that he will get those, or this commissioner will get those resources, so that he doesn't turn around when things, go south and say, no, I wasn't given this, I wasn't given that, which is something, or the criticism that has been leveled at the outgoing commissioner, that he, for the longest time, he didn't raise those issues as sharply until he was put in a corner, until he was the guy that everyone else blamed.
Absolutely. The issue of resources is very important. And I'm glad that when the president addressed the nation today, he alluded to the issue of resources, and the fact that already there's a process underway to get new recruits, 12,000 new recruits into the system. It's a good thing. But again, the stability at a leadership level, it is what I think was a bit missing because remember, there's been underspend of the budget, for example. So one can argue and say it is not just the resources that are required, but it is the ability of the leadership to spend the budget on issues that are critical, but also provide stability at that leadership level and at all levels. The issue that I've reflected on already around community as a resource, civil society as a resource, is something that is going to be very important. The ability for General Musimola to mobilize the whole of community to fight against crime and violence is going to be very important. The resources do not only lie within SABC. The SABC can never be successful in fulfilling its mandate on their own. I think that's a message that is very important. That any police organization that will be successful in dealing with safety and security issues is an organization that is able to work with a variety of stakeholders, including community and civil society organizations and business as well.
Tema, let's thank you for your time and insights this evening. Tema Masuku, he's a policing expert from the organization African Policing Civilian Oversight Forum, but he's also been involved in a number of things, including, of course, advising, on the aftermath of the Marikana Commission. What went on there, lessons learned, and how involved in advising the government on ensuring that police do a better job. After the break, the court judgment, that is South Africans talking. The 5-year sentence that was given, that was handed down at the East London Regional High Court by Magistrate Toinette Olivier, who found Sibongile Mani guilty of theft after that 14 million rand that was erroneously paid to her by Intellimali in 2017. We'll look at that in a moment. Welcome back, and before we get to that court ruling that has gotten South Africans talking, some breaking news. The deadline for the renewal of driving license cards has been extended until the 15th of April. Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula has gazetted a 2-week extension. Today was D-Day for citizens to renew their driving licenses before the grace period ends. In August last year, the minister granted an extension for learners' licenses, driver's licenses, temporary driver's licenses, and professional driver's permits. The Automobile Association was among organizations calling for an extended deadline due to recent problems with the production of driving license cards and issues around driving license testing centers. The organization Undoing Tax Abuse has welcomed the extensions. Mbalula is expected to brief the media tomorrow and will no doubt be there to bring you those details. So you can chill from tonight knowing that you won't be as easily arrested as would have been the case if indeed that deadline was still in place. But to this now, Walter Sisulu University student Sibongile Mani was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment yesterday. She was found guilty of theft after 14 million rand was erroneously paid to her by Intellimali in 2017. The education honors degree student spent over 800,000 rands of NSFAS money over 3 months before the error was identified. Yesterday's sentence, handed down at the East London Regional Magistrates Court by Magistrate Toinette Olivier, has gotten South Africans talking. Ntabiseng Dubazana is from Dubazana Attorneys and is going to help us understand these things perhaps a little bit better than some of us understand them. Good evening, Ntabiseng. Thanks very much for your time. From yesterday, the social networks, are talking about this. Radio stations this morning, if you look at your Twitter timeline from your morning lives, to your agendas, our programs here at the SABC, everybody, talking about this. What do you think has, what in your view has captured the imagination of South Africans about this particular case?
I would assume we are comparing cases as South Africans, looking at the conviction that was handed down, and then looking at past cases of the 500 million person that was convicted, the person that defrauded the pension funds. We're comparing cases and saying that how is it that somebody who spent this kind of money and who didn't go out of their way to go and actually steal the money that was deposited into her account can be treated in a harsher way than people that actually went out of their way to actually either defraud or steal money from certain individuals, and they're still walking the streets? Why is the sentence harsher than other individuals out there? I think that is the main thing that our country is trying to get to grips with, and that's why it's gotten the nation talking so much.
No, I mean, you have an understanding way above ours, on these matters. Are people wrong, to be appalled at the fact that she didn't go out of her way to, to steal it? And are they wrong in making the comparisons that they're making?
Not really. Then again, I suppose that talking from a standpoint of a defense attorney, when you look at the factors that were before the magistrate on the date of sentencing, she took a full hour to go through her reasonings and the mitigating and aggravating factors that were put before her for sentencing. And before her, she had what we call a correctional supervision report, and she also had a social worker's report before her. And both those reports were of the opinion that a custodial sentence is not suitable for the accused. They went into her social background, they went into her family background. It was even mentioned that she doesn't even have a good relationship with her mom, but she has a good relationship with her grandmother who's taking care of her kids. The school actually allowed her to continue with her studies. There wasn't financial loss that was suffered by NSFAS. Actually, we found out this morning that it was actually money that belonged to Walter Sisulu University and not NSFAS by virtue of the statement that was issued by NSFAS today. But be that as it may, all these things were put before her, and all these relevant things were to be considered as a magistrate under Section 2761H in order to look at other alternative forms of punishment. And out of all of these, she still chose to go with the custodial sentence. I think what defeated me the most was towards the end of her sentencing. She says the state has been tasked to deal with white-collar crimes, and this, is a way to show that we are dealing with such. This is not a white-collar crime. It really isn't. The accused was erroneously given 14 million, and of that money, yes, she definitely stole the 818,000 and some odd change. That much we are all in agreement of. She should be found guilty of that. That is okay. However, with the factors that were put before you as a first-time offender, her personal circumstances, the correctional supervision report, and the social report, I mean, isn't there any other reason, any other form of punishment that could have been readily available to the presiding officer? I think there is. It was given before her, but she chose not to go that way, though.
In fact, Professor Chulima Donsela wrote, hers is a curious conviction and sentence. Ordinarily, when a person is erroneously paid more than the contracted amount, the owner is entitled to a delictual claim under unjustified enrichment. I know of no case where the erroneous recipient was considered a criminal and jailed.
And over and above that statement, looking at what NSFAS has put out into as a statement today,
this morning, yes,
that themselves Yes, this morning. They themselves did not go for the criminal case, nor did the university after they were reimbursed. And then the magistrate goes further on to say in her sentencing that irrespective of the fact that the people who ought to have been the complainants in this matter and opened a case against the accused, and they didn't suffer any financial loss, other people who assisted in reimbursing the money are the ones who suffered financial loss, and as a result, the accused must be found guilty. I don't know. It's very curious. I don't understand it. I actually would like to see, once the matter goes on appeal, who exactly were the complainants in this matter. If NSFAS and the Walter Sisulu University have come out to say that they were not the complainants, then who then went and became the complainants and then the state took on the matter as a result? Because yes, indeed, that is correct. A delictual claim was available. I've said that when the money went into her account, the reference was there, so she knew where it comes from, right? And then she knew that she had applied to NSFAS for X amount for her student loan. And had she spent the money that is equivalent to her student loan, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But she went over and above what was due to her, and as a result, the issue of theft came in because now she has intentionally deprived the owner, which is NSFAS or the Walter Sisulu University, of their control or ownership of the property in this case, which is the money. That I could possibly get, and it's okay. But I think there were other means as a result of the statement that was brought in this morning, that she was given counseling, she was given an opportunity to continue with her studies with the same institutions. I am not understanding how the court came to a custodial sentence with all of these things that were readily available to her.
Ntabiseng, I wish we had more time because there's a couple more issues I wanted to raise with you, and one was the issue of lawyers, but also the standards that are imposed on her on how she should spend money, however she got it, but also several other issues around sentencing. But we have a breaking story, and that's where I have to go to. Thank you very much for your time. Apologies for not spending as much time as we would have wanted to. And to this breaking story, apparently chaos broke at the municipal council, Ekurhuleni council meeting this evening. And on the line, we have the Democratic Alliance's chief whip to explain to us what actually happened there. Good evening, sir. Thanks very much for your time. What happened?
Good evening, Vuyo, and I would like to greet the viewers at home. Just to be quick on what you are asking me, what happened is that we had a council meeting today. Firstly, the council meeting was supposed to debate the State of the City address that was delivered by the mayor, executive mayor, Alderman Campbell, yesterday, of which that began. And then when it began, of course, the councillors were hacking at one another. And then there was a point of order that was raised by the ANC, Alderman Zondi in particular, requesting that we respect each other in council so that the council can proceed. And indeed, that was done, and that was adhered to. And they, as the ANC, were given an opportunity to debate the state of the city. They called the alternative state of the city in their own terms. Then when other councillors were debating, the councillor from the DA was debating, and then they were heckling that came from the ANC side, saying that the speech from the DA councillor was written for her. And she responded in what we understood to be stupid, to say, "Awa." And then the ANC turned that around and said the councillor insulted them. That took us 2.5 hours trying to deal with that matter. In the end, we tried to listen to the record and to find out that word was actually uttered in a manner that the ANC said, because I would not be able to say it live on air, but it was recorded in the manner that they say. Then that was not supported by any evidence. But in the end, for the sake of peace, because the ANC would not let the council meeting to continue without the councillor apologizing and withdrawing, I then said to the councillor, as the chief of the DA, for the sake of peace and to make sure that we put the rest of the document first, let's rather just withdraw and apologize so that we move. And indeed, the councillor swallowed her pride and did just that, even though she did not say the words because the evidence was showing something different. Then there was peace, and then we were able to continue with the state of the city debate, and of course, proceeding to the beginning of the ordinary council meeting. Then, when the mayor was tabling the questions, and then the ANC were complaining that the questions were not imaged to the rest of the councillors. It is kind of practice that the questions will be tabled in council first before they are distributed to councillors, because it happened in the previous time where the questions were distributed to councillors, only to find out that the executives in council had not seen an owner to the question, and there were answers that they did not like on the question, and they were very upset about that. So when that happened,
Mr. Shandu, I mean, we have run out of time. We've run over, actually. And I must thank you for your time and for giving us some sense of what happened. Obviously, it's not the full story. We still have to ask other players. Hopefully, our sister programs are going to be able to speak to Mzwandile Masina and other political parties that were there to hear their sides of the story. Hectic visuals coming out of the Ekurhuleni council meeting that took place today. You can see there the former Mayor Mzwandile Masina being dragged out in a very dramatic fashion. But of course, we've only spoken to the DA. Hopefully, other political parties are going to come forward and we'll hear from them what actually happened. And that's the end of our show this evening. To join us again tomorrow night, 8 p.m. sharp. Up next, The Globe.